This week's episode was brought to you by Shelly Killigan and Froland Diaz. Thank you, Shelly Killigan and Froland Diaz. It's with the generous support of listeners like you that our intrepid band of rabbit raiders keeps successfully extracting from the abyss unspeakable with flavors for your gray matter that have never been tasted by mortal brains or beheld by untentacled hands. If you'd like to help us keep collecting fresh fever from the skies or just hear the second half of this kabbalistically delicious episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just 5 Buckminster Fullers will not only get you instant access to this extended occult commentary, but you'll get access to our entire library of almost completely racism and politics-free conspiracy content that's still too offensive to share with your family. The truth about countless things you're not even supposed to know about, and god damn it, whatever else these normie pink boys can scarcely understand, because that's not all. I'll send you a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art at no additional cost, and you'll be given the secret keys to our Discord server where you could tell us about how we're doing Kabbalah wrong and why Gematria is stupid. In this week's episode, we advance to chapters 3 and 4 of Liber ARARITA, a Class A holy book from the religion of Thelema prepared by Aleister Crowley to explain the unexplainable with overengineered religious poetry intended to be paired traditionally with camels and butt sex in the Algerian Desert. Well, chapter 3 deals with the quintessential energies of the Tree of Life in their most balanced and recognizable form. Chapter 4 deals with the psychedelic vision of stepping into this wisdom matrix in the first-person perspective. In the free side of the show, we get carried away exploring the occult meaning of the Hebrew letters Aleph and Resh, the letters that correspond to the chapters we've read so far, and what profound meaning they have when placed together. After throwing George Lucas under the bus, we make it about halfway through chapters 3 and 4 before breaking to have an aneurism and finishing the rest of the Tree of Life in the extended show. We spend quite a bit of time exploring the Tetragrammaton, what it has to do with the four worlds, and why nutsack is the best. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers. What do you call it when a 60-year-old man suddenly starts reading the Bible?
What?
Cramming for finals.
Aw, come on.
You know, I only believe 12.5% of the Bible.
Oh?
I guess that makes me an atheist. Like an atheist.
Tee.
Get it?
Wah, wah.
Did you know the Bible talks about who should make the coffee?
Really?
Who?
Yeah, there's a whole book dedicated to it called Hebrews. I just read a book that compares different versions of the Bible.
Oh?
Yeah, it's a lot of cross-referencing.
Oh.
Tee. Oh my gosh. I actually have that real book.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just compare the fruit of life with the fruit of death in some bizarre marshmallow-strewed ambrosia salad fit for a cosmic potluck. Nay, we distill down the theurgic marshmallow slurry into its quintessence before holding it at gunpoint and demanding it give up its secrets, because this week, we're continuing our esoteric analysis of Liber ARARITA, a Class A holy book from the religion of Thelema, with Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as the Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the dog working like a dog, Mari-sama. The pharaonic jet-headed sparkle horse of the Twin Horizons, Heka Astra.
Hello.
And the unrecalcitrant rectum raider of the Royal Rabbits, Mr. Tim Hacker.
El gusto es mío. What?
Rectum Raider.
Hell yeah. I'm around.
Also creator of the Cryptic Chronicles podcast. Make sure to check that out if you need even more crazy occult content.
It'll raid your rectum.
Yeah, I will. Every day.
I'm down.
Oh, man.
Hope your wife's not mad.
Nah, she helps.
Whoa! Sign me up.
Oh, God.
So you go back to the source.
I don't know why that actually made me laugh so hard.
It's my third eye.
So I'm realizing here in The Whole Rabbit, we do occultism for Halloween, which is bad for the algorithm. And then we do spooky season for Thanksgiving, which is bad for the algorithm. And then we do Kubrick conspiracies for Christmas.
Which is probably good for the algorithm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Everyone else is doing spooky stuff. It's not my fault Nick Land fell in everybody's lap and now we have to talk about Kabbalah.
Watch us just talk about the graveyard stuff next week after Halloween.
So we did chapter 1, we did chapter 2. Now in Crowley's commentary, he gives us an idea of how we should study the next 2 chapters, because he told us how we should study the previous 2, but he told us how we should study these as well. He says,
Thus, in chapter 3, still verse by verse correspondence, the quintessence of the idea is extracted, and in chapter 4, they are withdrawn, each one into one beyond it. End quote.
what does that mean? It means that by sandwiching the first 2 chapters together, we arrive at their synthesis in the 3rd chapter. Easy enough. That's the first set of lines we'll be exploring today. That is what Crowley is referring to here as the quintessence. It's the quintessential tree of life, if you will. In colloquial terms, we may call this the basic bitch tree. In terms of the 4th chapter, however, each of these quintessences are withdrawn each into one beyond it. Well, what does that mean? At first, this sounds like we're moving up or down a Sephira because they do emanate out of each other, but that is too confusing and not what he's saying. It means that we're going deeper into the Sephira we're already talking about. We're going deeper into it. Getting all up in the donut hole. The most holy part.
Third eye, the brown eye.
Get it? Holes? Holy? Holes? Get it?
Sorry, I usually have better composure.
It's funny.
So in chapter 4, we're getting a peek behind the curtain. Well, this is one way to explain it, like the traditional way it's explained. I found the dichotomy between 3 and 4 to be best explained as chapter 3, the initiate is beholding God in its purest form, as the father. Then in chapter 4, the initiate is like a baby, allowing the father to hold her wrists and then show him how to walk. You know, move and speak like daddy. It's even stated in this context to some extent. Like, here, baby, let me show you how to smite the sinners.
That's not the sinners.
It's basically chapter 4, at least to me, which is an important distinction.
So before we even get to the lines in the chapters, I thought it would be a good idea to start this off with the letters of the chapters themselves. So just to recap, the Notarikon Ararita is made up of 7 Hebrew letters. Aleph, Resh, Yod, Tav, Aleph, being the first letters of each word in...
Oh, you're gonna have me say it. Ikad, Ra'osh, Achudo, Rashid, Yakudu, Tamarato, Ikad. Why do you make me do this?
Pretty good.
which translates to...
One is his beginning. One is his individuality. His permutation is one.
So the repetition of Aleph Resh corresponds to the first 4 chapters of Ararita. So in order, chapter 1, Aleph, 2, Resh, 3, Aleph, 4, Resh, making it so that from chapters 1 through 4, we spelled out the RR part of Ararita.
That's the part the pirates like the best.
But what significance does that have? If we're to compare these in pairs, 1 with 2 and 3 with 4, then there must be a reason for this pattern repetition. We covered the dual natures of 1 and 2 in the last episode, the spheres with their shells, but why are we doing this again in 3 and 4? Well, I think Luke touched on that a bit. But also, the first hint is that the verses in chapter 3 are being related here to quintessence of ideas for each sphere. So if we just go back to the basics and compare these 2 letters, we find something interesting, especially in uniting the 2 together. So both letters appear together in the first word of the Hebrew Bible. We're talking about Aleph and Resh in the word Bereshit, often translated as meaning in the beginning.
Does a bear shit in the woods?
Is the Pope Catholic?
If we combine Aleph and Resh together, we could interpret it as meaning beginning of the head. The individual letter Aleph on its own indicates oneness and unity beyond an idea of separation.
Beginning of the head makes a lot of sense for what we're reading.
It is oneness of source, and so it represents creation of something from nothingness. It represents a kind of unity which is undivided. The letter Aleph itself is composed of 2 yods joined together by a diagonal vav.
A little bit like a percentage sign.
Yod is the smallest letter of the Hebrew alphabet, looking like a floating apostrophe, sort of. It tends to represent a starting point, and it's actually the starting point of all Hebrew letters. You can think of it like a divine spark, or the spirit in all of the letters.
This is one reason Yod means hand, because it's what God used to shape the rest of the letters.
The way the Aleph is drawn, these two yods create a kind of reflection of each other, like the higher and lower spirit, with the Vav acting as a kind of stretched firmament between them. This theme of light cascading from above to below seems apt for the point of creation from nothingness, with the Vav acting as the stretching of the firmament between them.
Vav actually means nail or hook, and it's used like and to this day. In Arabic, it's the letter W, so you'll see it used like that in words or phrases. For instance, wa Allah is by Allah.
This absolute creative unity is then followed by the letter Resh, often thought of as being synonymous to head, leader, or beginning, though many sources also point out that Resh represents wickedness, a lack of wealth, or being poor.
In this way, the head is its own opposite.
Resh, like other Hebrew letters, has multiple meanings and symbolisms that are attached to it. The way that the letter is drawn is as a man bowing, and we have a relationship here to humility. Alongside humility, it also means head, wickedness, evil, or poverty, and that poverty is also why it is described as a kind of container, in much the same way that a head serves as the container of your consciousness, or the receiver of your consciousness, if you will. I believe the pairing of the Aleph with the Resh as a pattern reiterates this self-contained unity of God, or the creative source. The Resh is containing the infinite, its shape, like a bowing man. It's also the water or the divine emanation flowing forth, carrying transformative energy with it. The use of Resh in meaning poor or poverty seems to connect to a concept of lack, as in lacking something, which, in its emptiness or vessel-like receptivity, serves as its own creative vessel pouring into itself. I imagine this a bit like a hermetically sealed vacuum of infinite nothingness, which fills itself by drawing its own infinite nothingness into itself as like a focal point to somethingness.
Just to recap, between the Aleph and the Resh, you have this idea of a unity in a threefold figure with the Aleph. And then the Resh has a distinct spirit of duality. You could even see that when you superimpose these letters on a hexagram in regards to Liber ARARITA, they're sort of presented in this way. And it reminds me a bit of the Waset, where it's implying this relationship that, okay, the one is actually three. That's the Trinity. And anytime the one manifests, it manifests as duality. This principle is even symbolically in the Hierophant card of the tarot, where the Hierophant card, he's always showing you two fingers, but he's holding three back for himself. Meaning, he knows the secret that there's really one unity, but it always manifests as two. And this, as we've learned on the show, thank you, Heka, is what the Waset represents. It's the force that's outgoing, even if it's a unity, always manifests as dualness. This is what it looks like to me between the Aleph and the Resh. That's what it sounds like you're describing.
Yeah, and it's like pouring into itself. It's like self-fulfilling. The drawing of Resh as a letter is a combination of Yod and Shin, which together makes Yesh, and means there is, or something. It is often used to express the presence of something. In the first chapter, we see that each line relates to the divine emanations of each sphere on the Tree of Life, where each essence of divinity is linked back to the absolute source that is God, which the Aleph and its line in the Notarikon symbolize the unity thereof. Chapter 2, we see the Klipothic shells as the wicked and lacking containers, like peels of fruit, which hide the fruit or light of divine emanation. This relationship described above hints that it is the lack which creates the vacuum of divinity to pour forth into, making the profane or averse a kind of container or aspect of lacking which is necessary for divinity to self-create. So like a head as a kind of container for consciousness, it reminds me of the Book of the Law where it says, "For I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union." On its own, the letter can mean poor, rash, but when it is filled with an Aleph, it becomes Rosh, the exact word used in the phrase that ARARITA stands for, Echad Rosh. Rosh meaning head. In this way, ARARITA tells us that the Resh container is filled with the infinite all, that it is God symbolized by the Aleph, and therefore implies the exponential infinite growth of the all within it. That pattern is also repeated here in chapter 3 and 4, where we get a second A and R of Ararita.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can't have the process of filling a cup up without having the empty vessel first. So it's like an ingredient of the equation. In order to be full, there must be an empty vessel that is filled.
Yeah, and it's like a conceptual vessel because there are other Hebrew letters that symbolize cup or an actual container, but Resh is kind of like a conceptual container in that way, like a lac. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I interpret that as like the pre-container concept.
I think that's a good way to think of it because in traditional Hebrew mysticism, all of the evil is created by the shattering of the vessels, and they're shattered by an inflowing of light. And this is, in some ways, an attempt at theodicy, like, why is there evil in the world? Well, it's because the light had to arise out of this. It had to be poured into something. And this idea is well reflected in the esoteric symbolism of Ararita itself, you could say. I heard someone use the term word cells today on Twitter. Are we word cells?
What's that?
I don't even know what that is.
I think that means we are.
Oh, it's like when you're an incel for etymology.
So I get the impression that the first resh in our text is the evil meaning, while the second resh is the empty meaning. And we already talked about the evil part. In chapter 4, we're going to be talking about the empty receptacle part of resh, where it becomes a receptacle for Adonai, or God. So let's get started. We're going to start by reading chapter 3, the Aleph chapter, and then a line from chapter 4, the resh chapter. So you'll hear us call it out, chapter 3 and chapter 4, respectively.
And this is line 0, right?
Yes.
Okay, chapter 3, line 0. Say thou that he, God, is one. God is the everlasting one. Nor has he any equal, or any son, or any companion. Nothing shall stand before his face.
Not to torture it too much. This line is basically another translation of Surah 112, which is the same thing that opens the text, except now it has a place within the text, and it happens to be here. This makes sense, though, because the line itself has positive qualities, like in chapter 1, but it's mixed with negative or not qualities, which we found in chapter 2. That's what makes it the quintessence. You know, God is this. He's not that. You know what I mean? And it does have a distinctly Islamic flavor to it because Muslims don't believe the whole like God is your daddy thing. That's a Christian thing. So the idea is maintained that God doesn't have a son. There's nothing like equal. Like God doesn't have a family. He doesn't have like a cool auntie, you know. It's a distinctly Islamic version of Abrahamic thought, I guess you could say. Now, EIO 131 points out that this line, verse 0 from chapter 3, more or less matches the line from Crowley's vision and the voice when he's scrying Aether 16, which reads,
Great is the beast that cometh forth like a lion, the servant of the star and of the snake. He is the eternal one. He is the Almighty One. Blessed are they upon whom he shall look with favor, for nothing shall stand before his face. Accursed are they upon whom he shall look with derision, for nothing shall stand before his face.
let's see Yaldabaoth just screaming at you.
Whee!
Chapter 4-0. Also the little child, the lover of Adonai. Even V.V.V.V.V, reflecting the glory of Adonai, lifted up his voice and said,
Are you talking about child lovers again, Tim?
No.
You did this last episode too.
You were the one that brought up the sun.
Hold on now.
We'll talk about it. We just keep giving Tim those lines.
Oh, I love this.
Hold on now. Like, if you really love dogs, you could call yourself a lover of dogs. But if you want to take that and twist that to mean something else, that's on you.
We
Praise
actually will.
dog.
We will talk about it. It is important for the text. So
Oh, finally, I get to know what V.V.V.V.V means.
Dog bless
yes,
you.
it's very important. So what the hell is going on? Who is Adonai? Especially who's V.V.V.V.V.V? It's hard to count those V's when you're saying them that fast. Okay.
There's five of them.
Whatever. That's actually a video game you do with a one too many. That's why they made the video game, so it'd be hard to look up.
I love how 5 is also V, so there's like 5 5s.
Hey, you're onto something. Keep that in mind. So, Vi veri universum vivus vici. Now, this
Very good.
is a modern Latin phrase meaning, by the power of truth, I, while living, have conquered the universe. It also just so happens to be the most badass thing ever.
That is so cool.
You know what I just figured out is that is if you look at it like 5 to the power of 5, you get 3,125. And then if you add all those numbers up, you get 11.
Of course.
Specifically, if you go in order, like 3 plus 1 plus 2, you get 6 plus 5, 11.
Oh, because universe is written with a V in Latin, technically. Yeah.
But also, 11 is the number of the 5 and 6 together.
Yes, that is also very important for what we are talking about. It's a big idea, so just hear me out. One clue is this amusing dichotomy where in line 0 of chapter 3 it declares that none can stand before God's face. And in the corresponding line of the very next chapter, we find the childlike companion kind of standing before God's face. Like, what is going on? Who is this V.V.V.V.V.V? What does it mean? Well, first of all, I always love to point out that it's on Luke Skywalker's helmet in the trench run scene. This has to be on purpose because George Lucas intended for Luke to become what this motto represents in Thelema, the master of the temple.
The picture you put in of Luke's helmet, it's like super uncanny. It has to be a reference to V.V.V.V.V.
Like, what else could it possibly be? And we know that he's the prophesied future master of the temple. And so this is a grade in Thelema. I believe also it's just a grade in like regular Golden Dawn Hermeticism. And it is a level of attainment that's like universal, right? And it's all charted on the Tree of Life. It's like when you cross the abyss into Bina. And it's also known as the babe of the abyss. This explains the cringy inappropriateness we just spoke about. Because V.V.V.V.V. is Adonai's child, but also his lover. And frankly, it is weird and gross without the occult explanation, so allow me. So, in short, as we've discussed on the show before, 8 equals 3 is the first station you arrive at after crossing the abyss. So, to oversimplify, this is an ordeal designed to remove the final filter between you and God, which just happens to be the ego personality complex, something that we, on the day-to-day, often find ourselves identifying with. In the verbiage of this tradition, to be stripped of this ego personality, it makes you a babe, a baby, if you will. So you are a babe that has been born from crossing the abyss. The reward for giving up everything you could possibly ever identify with is this new uninhibited view, or this unity or closeness with God, the Father. This is the same one Jesus is talking about, like, go meet the Father, got to go through me, etc. But that's ultimately where he's sending you. Okay, so what about the lover bit? How do we square that one with the child? Well, there's only one answer that makes any sense. In theory, one becomes a babe by crossing the abyss, right? And your place of arrival is conceptualized as Bina, the domain of understanding, which is what the word means in Hebrew. Now, Bina is a receptive sphere, which receives the emanative light of Hakma unfiltered. For this reason, all of the kings of the tarot are conceptualized as living in Hakma, while all the queens exist over in Bina. If we continue, we find the princes in Tifereth and the princesses are in Malkuth. These 4 court cards together are said to correspond to the 4 letters of God's name, also known as the Tetragrammaton. In this scheme, the queens would correspond to the 2nd letter in the Tetragrammaton, the He. In Hermetic nerd speak, that means attaining this level of awareness makes you both a babe to God the Father, because you're reborn in Bina, but you also become the queen of the tarot, wed permanently to the, quote, king, who is God's masculine or emanative quality, represented by Hakma.
That's still a total babe, though, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Hey, babe.
You become God's bitch, basically. This is partly evidenced by the fact that what Maury noticed earlier, which is that the 5 V's, which themselves can be said to equal 5, make an apt symbol for He, the Tetragrammaton, a letter with the numerical value of, what else, but 5. So these 5 V's could also said to be creating the 5-fold star, which we then invoked in the earlier lines, because you're supposed to weld the 5-fold star to the 6-fold star. Also, just so happens that Adonai has the numerical value of 65, which is also the numerical value of LVX for light.
Looks.
So Adonai equals light, but also 65, just think about it for a minute. You have the 6, the 6-fold star, and the 5-fold star in union, right? So so both of those ideas sort of like overlap big time.
11.
Yes, more 11. That's also what the 11 represents.
Oh, yeah.
I've got something to back up your Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so, okay, I know in the show notes, not everyone has access to the show notes, but what's on the side of his helmet? What's that circle?
It's the Phoenix.
No, not the rebel symbol, the circle on the side. It's like a circle with a bunch of lines through it.
Oh, that part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the placenta hieroglyph.
What?
No way.
Yeah. And
Whoa.
Shut the f*** up.
Yeah.
It totally
Really?
fucking is, bro.
I was like, I wanted to, let you do your thing.
It totally fucking is. I never even noticed that. That's crazy.
I see hieroglyphs everywhere.
Dude, George Lucas knew what he was talking about because he studied film. And all those early film nerds were into Aleister Crowley. And he's like, just watch me work, buddy. He knew all the stuff. And then, of course, we know the phoenix symbol of the rebellion is related to Horus. And
Yeah, the the Bennu bird.
what did they name the characters? Ben. Give me an effing break.
Yeah, it's a placenta hieroglyph.
Even Luke means light, so that's 65 again.
Lux.
Lux, Adonai, the babe of the abyss. That's why he's always a child.
I'm sorry to interrupt your...
And
I tried to wait.
He has to gain a harmonious union with Dad in order to finish anyway.
Well, is this perchance why women are infantilized a lot?
Yeah, you gotta blame the Tetragrammaton for that one. You can blame the Bible. That's fine. To be fair, we are going to arrive at some hidden divine feminine because, it is Aleister Crowley we're talking about. We got to have buttholes and vaginas.
Aw.
Lots and lots of penises.
Batty.
All right, so long story short, V.V.V.V.V. is the nobody, and the nobody is a suitable vessel for God's light. The end. Not terribly hard to understand. So that brings us to line number 1, now that we've traversed the Great Zero.
Chapter 3, line 1. Even for 511 times nightly, for 41 days, did I cry aloud unto the Lord the affirmation of his unity.
And that's kind of fun, because the corresponding line in chapter 4 is almost like what he was crying aloud.
Chapter 4-1. Glory to God and thanksgiving to God. There is one God alone, and God is exceeding great. He is about us, and there is no strength save in him, the exalted, the great.
All right, so what's up with this 511 and this 41 situation?
So Luke shared this pretty impressive document with me entitled The Gematria Notebook of Paul Foster Case, which contains a huge amount of data on the gematria of different words.
Malachor sent it to me originally.
So the very first word mentioned under the section for the value of 511 is actually a name, Asenath, and that's a name meaning dedicated to Nath. Now, in the Bible, Asenath is the wife of Joseph. She has an Egyptian name. Without getting too much into the debate about whether the individual is from Egypt or not, this Egyptian name basically translates to dedicated to Nath, like I said. And Nath is an ancient Egyptian goddess, or rather a Neteret, who is identified with the primordial waters of noon, or the pre-creation nothingness.
A Neteret is a type of cheese, correct?
It's just, it's technically proper to put the T at the end when it's a feminine netter.
Got it. So it's basically like a god, but it's more like an aspect of nature or the universe?
Yeah, it's like we would think of them as deities, but they're more like macrocosmic energies or influences or natures.
And we've talked about Neith before, but an important part about Neith is like way, way, way up there conceptually, right?
Yeah, she is a creatrix, basically. Like she is a primeval deity. So she was a personification of creation itself. Her name often translates as meaning terrifying one. So this brings to mind the concept of panic when faced with the collective nature of divinity and why angels actually have to tell you to be not afraid.
And we find a lot of overlap between Neith and Artemis in her darker aspect. And we reason it out that essentially Artemis could be thought of as the lunar reflection of the larger concept that is Neith.
So if you look at the etymological root of terror, you find that it stems from the Proto-Indo-European word tre, meaning tremble. In fact, it has the same root word as the word tremendous and tremble. Keeping this in mind, this great trembling is often how the creation stories describe the first movement. So Nath is also related to the loom and weaving, envisioned as the entire path workings of life, or sometimes war and flying arrows in her symbolism, or crossed arrows. The relationship shared between the circle of the loom creating all the path workings of life and the flying forth of arrows are both used to describe the relationship of Nath's womb giving birth from the primordial waters of noon. In this sense, we can also kind of think of Kether as being like female genitalia dedicated to creation. This conceptualization may not actually be too far off here when we consider that the first thing which which comes out at birth, if all goes well, is the head, which brings us back to Resh.
So, like, the fact that she's a creatrix, she's working as the second layer of Noon, where, like, you have this creative waters where things can rise out of, but this specific entity is the scaffolding or the matrix upon which a creation can, like, grab on hold to. And it's like a program that kind of formulates the final form.
Yeah, and like, what would Kether be dedicated to doing? As an aperture, it would be dedicated to creation. So if she's a personification of creation, it's like, that's its function. That's what it does.
It's like a funneling down into like a hard form that's very specific.
Yes, we are sort of conceptualizing Kether as like the aperture of her womb, to put it lightly.
And the aperture of like a camera kind of, it dictates what you're focusing on, like how large or wide the photography is. You know, you can focus in and make sharp the edges of something small or something large, depending
Just like
on what
a
you're
cervix.
focusing on. Oh, that too, yeah.
So this number 511 that appears in the text, one numerical match it has is to Risha, which is a female Hebrew name that in turn means head. If you were just spelling head normally, it would just be Rosh, or Rosh, like Rosh Hashanah. You see it spelled that way.
But this version includes the Aleph.
Yes, it has Resh, Yod, Shin, Aleph, and that's what makes the 511. Yes, it also just so happens that head, Rosh, or Rusha, is one of the titles of Kether, because it's the head of the tree of life.
So if we follow this train of thought, the head is its own opposite. Risha, meaning head, doesn't just contain the words Asher in it. It's actually what you get when you write the word backwards. And here we have like an immediate duality of individuation. One head looking forward and the one looking backwards at the point of becoming. Naturally, it makes sense that Kether's shell is Thamiel then, the twins of God, or also why openers of the way sometimes have two faces, like Janus Bifron's, and are always invoked at the beginning of a work.
Because they open the way.
The word Asher is the tribe of Israel that is related to the alchemical process of sublimation. So this is because if we break down the word, we get Aleph plus Shin, making the Hebrew word Ash or Esh, which means fire, giving the Ash of Asher the meaning of fire, and combining it with Resh, the head, and Yod, the single point of creation or hand. And together, all of these give the kind of impression of divine fire, self-contained at a single point of creation or source. We also get a direct connection to Asherah, the wife of the chief god El. And chief is also an alternate meaning for that word, right? Yod represents the divine spark or the prima materia, also known to the alchemists as the fifth element, azoth, or quintessence, which, as Crowley points out, is what chapter 3 is being extracted in its ideas. As with practical alchemy, we do this through sublimation and distillation, the process related to Asher, according to the Gematria Notebook by Paul Foster Case, at least. This makes sense to me because the process of sublimation is the transformation of a raw matter from solid to gas, skipping the intermediate liquid form. So when it condenses, it may then collect and take a liquid form. In alchemy, the spirit is extracted from the raw matter through rapid vaporization, made possible by fire or heat, and then the cooling causes its condensation. So sublimation and distillation may be thought of as two parts of one process, the rising of the vapor being sublimation and the condensation and descent being distillation. Personally, I think that you can relate the heating and the rapid cooling with Hakma and Bina, but I think I'm kind of digressing a bit. You can think of it in this first verse as relating to the rise of spirit from nothingness and the descent of spirit into matter. The spirit is made corporeal and the body is made spiritual, and because of this, it is said that one gives way to the experience of the other. Of this, it was stated in the Dialogue of the Alchemist and Sulfur by Sendivogius that,
quote, "For what has not descended never can ascend to heaven's bright meridian," end quote.
So as we know with alchemy, the main goal is to reveal the hidden fifth element or quintessence in the raw matter, and in doing so, accomplish the great work, the magnum opus, the philosopher's stone, or the philosophical child.
So more babies.
More babies.
More squeezing babies.
Baby.
511 also equals the numerical value of the word Sathema, which means concealed, cover, closing or stopping up. This, too, is a fitting word to relate to Kether, as it is sometimes referred to as, quote, the most holy ancient one, that is, once again, quote, concealed with all concealments. This also fits with the theme of unveiling and reveiling we find in these lines from the previous chapters.
So sublimation and distillation was sometimes referred to by the alchemists of old as the driving of the soul, coinciding with another 511 Gematria word, huk, meaning to go, and is the no thing power that goes forth into every form of manifestation and brings about every phenomenon. That part I paraphrased from the Gematria notebook. I can't help but notice a clear similarity in both the meaning and the sound between huk and the Egyptian Heka, the no thing, which is the power of all forms and manifestations, the eternal primordial Ka that's born into all. Now, relating Kether once more to autogenesis and the immaculate birth of the all, it makes sense that we would have even more relations attaching it to the baby coming out of a womb. Head first.
I think we've spent most of this episode proving that Kether is God's pussy.
What?
I think that's what's happened.
I mean, I tried to say it more eloquently.
Why? You know, you're gonna offend God?
No,
Just people.
And maybe Eldabaoth.
he's a dick. That guy.
Don't say that.
He kind of likes it when you're an asshole to him, though. Well, it depends.
You know, the Santa Muerte people refer to her as like bitch. And so the Discordians, they refer to Eris as like the great bitch.
What?
Yeah.
It's like in a good prerogative, you know?
It's like endearing. So anyway,
You're going to back me up on this womb thing.
I'm actually going to back you up on this God's pussy thing because that's what we're talking about. Now, the text also prominently mentions 41 as 40 and 1 times nightly. And this fits with our analysis of Kether as a womb because 41 is very simply in Hebrew which means womb. And it also can mean concealment or just mother.
Also sounds like,
It does, yeah.
look at the little baby.
So I included a picture of a womb so we could see what we're talking about here.
You see that little umbilical cord?
Oh.
Yeah, that's the devil.
That's the devil.
What?
Yeah, that's Apophis. That the Ra's umbilical cord, that little snaky looking thing, that's Apep.
And like I said, I think in a recent episode, the ah or is a syllable that's most associated, like a lot of goddesses have that sound
yeah.
in their name. And I remember where I started researching this because I don't know if you guys ever listened to Moby songs, but
What the f- is Moby? From like
Moby,
90s?
yeah.
My God.
Nobody listens to techno. Nobody listens to techno.
Eric.
Oh, sorry.
But in one of his songs, one of the lyrics is lift me up, higher now, Amma. Because people thought it was I'm up. But he actually says Amma, and then when they talk to him about the song, like the sidelines, he's telling them what it means. He's like, I don't know, it just sounds like a goddess name. And apparently he saw the same research where that syllable is used in primordial goddess names the most. So I don't know, I just think that kind of adds to the pile here.
Someday we're going to have to do an episode on Finnegan's Wake because Finnegan's Wake is written with this whole conceptual framework in mind because the book is technically gibberish, but if you use these linguistic keys, it actually makes sense. For instance, there's a female yogi that goes by the name Amma. She's famous for giving hugs. Like, she can enlighten you with a hug.
Ew, girls have cooties.
Female yogis are a little more rare, but they do happen. But you're right, Mari, like, Amma. It's a generic name for the mother, similar to Baba or Abba or Dada.
Or Mama.
Yeah.
Mama.
I say Abba when I'm playing with the dog.
Well, this relates back to the thing we were talking about with the Muslims, because Christ would refer to the father as Abba, which is like saying daddy. I mean, it's not quite as, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it was seen as grotesque to some people, or it was like too informal, but it's a term of endearment, and it's something that you only use like with your father you're close to in like a private setting. But Christ would refer to God this way, or the Father, I should say, which is a huge part of what we're talking about today, specifically the Father. And, you know, in fact, that's the next line is where the Father is said to live on the Kabbalistic tree of life. So take it away, Mari.
Chapter 3, line 2. Also did I glorify his wisdom, whereby he made the worlds.
Chapter 4-2. Thus did V.V.V.V.V. become mad and went about naked.
The second verse here relates to the second sphere, Hakma, meaning wisdom, which is the wisdom that's being glorified in this line. This wisdom is described as naked, as it does not yet have form. So if we conceptualize the aperture of Kether like a divine mouth speaking creation into being, then Hakma would be related to the Logos, or divine word and breath of God. And like it or not, I'm getting into Egypt stuff this episode. Can't help it. So in Egyptian creation stories, this divine utterance and breath is called Hu. When Hu was portrayed, it was simply as a man wearing a modified hieroglyph of the tongue on his head. Now, the way that the hieroglyph is modified is that normally there is a curved line that extends down from the top line of the hieroglyph, but with Hu, his entire body appears to give the same silhouette of that second line. He was considered to be the tongue of Ptah, the creator god, and personifies not just speech, but divine authority. And most often, depictions of Hu included another netter named Sia, who I'll bring up later, but Hu glorifies his wisdom like speech arising from a mouth creating the words. In the pyramid text, it describes it as follows. The gods will terrorize for King Unas, remember terror having roots in shaking and nath, since he is older than the Great One and belongs to the control of his throne. King Unas will assume authoritative speech. Hu, eternity shall be brought to him. Understanding, Sia, shall be placed for him at his feet.
So this speech thing and relating it to Hakama is pretty damn important. This is what like religion, Christianity, Judaism would call the word, okay? This is what happens in Hakama. But we're still only in Hakama. And this is why I believe V.V.V.V.V. is described here in Hakama as mad, because he's speaking, he's gibbering even. It's mad because it's the word before it is clothed in form. It does not borrow from the intelligence of Bina yet, because that's what Bina is. It's the intelligence. So if we were to riff on what Heka is saying, it seems to suggest that Hu requires Sia to like even be a thing for it to be complete.
So even like we discussed before, these Pentecostal sects that speak in tongues and they do those like snake handling and stuff.
Yeah.
So the speaking in tongues is being on light with the fire of the Holy Spirit. This is to say, and they believe that it's speaking a language that was present before Babylon. Like it was the universal language that everyone understood, but it had no form. It had no definitive meaning to it. So in a way, I could see this line referring to even that type of speech where like the babbling of these formless words could have some meaning, but Sia gives it the distinct meaning and power behind the words that comes through language.
I think that's a very folk / medieval interpretation of this exact same concept, but I would say that's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole reason why we're doing chapter 3 and chapter 4 side by side is that we're going over the quintessence and we're extracting it into the world beyond it, right? So this is to say that Hu requires Sia to be complete is accurate because it extracts itself into the world beyond it. And also Sia needs Hu just as much. So it's kind of like a two-way street. They require each other in order to be active, creative principles, even as concepts. So in Egyptian texts, Hu and Sia are drawn forward and give rise to the Ben or the mound of creation from the waters of noon. And you can kind of visualize this like a child formulating within a womb, causing extension of the belly. So immaculately, these creative principles are embodied as Shu and Tefnut. The self-created God is immediately a one that is three. But as seen in the next line, it is Bina, understanding, that is being described as in charge of speech in creation, since it is the contextual self-embrace of the Hakma wisdom.
So like here, the speech is still wild. It's naked, unclothed, it's mad. Each of these are a fitting descriptive word for Pan, which is also related to the sphere of Hakma. Elsewhere in the Thelema tradition, the same vision here in Hakma is related to what they call the night of Pan. The night refers to the extinguishing of the self, and Pan to the vision of the all, but in its aspect of like going forth, emanating, or speaking. So Hakma is thought of as Kether overflowing. It's Kether in its overflowing aspect. This is what is reveiling the aperture of Kether, is this overflowing aspect too. So it's this activity, this madness of V.V.V.V.V. that the verse implies. I know I'm never gonna be able to count 5. It's
That's an extra
impossible.
V.
I know, he keeps putting an extra one in there.
So it's the same quality of going forth or emanating, which is responsible of the unity of Kether being broken up into a multitude of different worlds we find mentioned in this line. Because before Hakma, Kether was just like chilling, and then it emanates, and then like, oh my god, now we have all these worlds. So what are these worlds? In the tarot, there are 4 suits. And then all the numbered cards and the court cards, they have a specific spot on the Tree of Life. And then even if you look to the major arcana, those represent paths between these specific places. So everything exists on the Tree of Life in the tarot. So to get into the nitty gritty, we know that all the 2s live in Hakma because that's number 2 on the Tree of Life. Does that make sense? Then all the 3s, they all live in Bina because Bina is number 3 on the Tree of Life. So this gives us 10 spheres with 4 numbered cards in it each, right? Now in reality, each of these different suits, they're really stacked on top of each other. So there's a fire tree, and then under that is a water tree, and under that is an air tree, and under that is an earth tree. So really, the worlds are like 4 Kabbalistic trees of life stacked on top of each other like one giant psychedelic ladder.
Wow, you're blowing my mind right now.
And so these 4 suits correspond to the 4 worlds. They also correspond to the 4 letters in the tetragrammaton. Yod, He, Vav, He. Yod would be the wands, He would be the cups, Vav would be the swords, and the second He, that's the pentacles.
Oh my gosh.
So the tarot has a lot of it's the anatomy of the tree. It like everything in the universe is in a deck of tarot cards. That's why it's the devil's picture book. And that's really the point here, is that if the words had never been spoken, had Hakma never emanated from Kether, the 4 worlds never would have existed. In theory, the tetragrammaton never would have been uttered. It all would have just been self-contained in Kether, and that would be the end of the story. But no, Hakma had to run out, be delivered, like this baby we're talking about, coming out of God's snatch. Gibbering gobbledygook, and it has yet to be given an intelligent shape or meaning in Bina, which, guess what? You're gonna have to pay me at least $5 to hear about, because you can visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit to hear the rest of this episode. And not only that, you can hear the rest of every single one of our episodes, which goes back before 2020. I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker for a Big Bunny Baphomet cover art, and I'll send you a Discord server key, which is where we all hang out, the hosts and the listeners, and you can talk to us there about what you think about the Tree of Life. It's an active mode of study, and from what I understand, the traditional way to study Kabbalah is to argue about it.
I was going to say, I disagree with you.
I disagree with you too.
I think Hakma and Bina are still the womb, because once the baby is born, it becomes Tiferet.
Ah.
I don't think that's a totally inaccurate way to think of it, but I'm just going to keep beating you with the tetragrammaton. So if you want to see that, well, first you're going to have to eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew pew pew.
Pew, 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 pew.